my Pikachu coffee cup with me. It is currently recording time, and yeah, let's do it. Let's check it out. Let's check it out.
Hello everyone. Welcome to the first video of a brand new mini-series on my channel. This series, called Thomas Debunked, are little deep dives into the endless lore of Thomas the Tank Engine. Originally, all of these were going...
Please try to debunk the theory that I have that Thomas and Transformers are in the same universe. Please.
compiled into one big video called Debunking Common Thomas Misconceptions. But as I was typing out the script, I had a thought. Why not make all of these little individual bite-sized videos? Being only a couple minutes long, I can upload these more irregularly, on days that aren't just Fridays. Perfect little videos to fill gaps during periods of time where I'm working on bigger analytical videos. That way, you all get new content at a more consistent rate, and I get a little more time to work on my bigger analytical videos and make them better. My intention with this series is that you can link one of these videos as a reply to someone on Twitter or somewhere to add context to a discussion. I have also opened a TikTok account where these will be posted as well.
I'm never going on
You
TikTok.
should definitely follow me there if you haven't already.
I hate TikTok.
Link in the description. A lot of you die-hard fans will probably know most of the stuff I talk about in these, but hopefully, just maybe, you might learn something new from this series that you didn't know before. I hope you all like them. Let's kick off this series with the world's fastest engine.
Classic. I always like that shot.
Many fast engines have made their way to the island of Sodor in the TV series. But who is the fastest of them all? As the show went on, it frequently contradicted itself on who the fastest engine was. This is Spencer. He's the fast.
Something worth noting here is that I didn't watch the CGI series, so right now what I think is the fastest engine is Spencer. I could be wrong about that.
Engine in the world.
Hugo's the fastest engine in the world.
Etienne
Hugo?
recently set the world rail speed record. Spencer was stated to be the fastest engine in the world in his debut in Season 7. This is reinforced by a later character promo, which states he holds the world speed record for steam locomotives. In fact, Spencer still holds the world land speed record for steam locomotives. This is technically incorrect. This record is actually held by the real-life engine Mallard.
Yeah, but
which is
Spencer's
one of
Mallard.
Spencer's class, an A4 Pacific. Are they implying Spencer is supposed to be Mallard? Mallard's record was 126 miles per hour. While indeed a feat, it was a special occasion. Usually A4s went around 90 to 100 miles per hour, so we'll assume Spencer probably goes these speeds on the regular, although is probably capable of more. Next up, we have Connor, who is a streamlined New York Central Hudson.
Connor! It's Sodor Fallout, guys. Sodor Fallout is canon, guys. Sodor Fallout. I'm sorry. I actually have a friend named Connor.
Speeds were as high as 123 miles per hour.
Not bad.
Making him just a bit faster than Spencer on the regular, and also making him faster than him in the show accurate. Who was that? Connor is the show's fastest steam engine, although not the fastest. Kenji is a Zero Series Shinkansen, a bullet train
That looks kind of like a Kana, doesn't it? I wonder if Kana was inspired by Kenji. I don't know. I'll have to ask. I think his name's Rick. I'll have to ask him.
We visited Sodor. Shinkansen's top speed is 220 kilometers an hour, or 137 miles per hour. That's pretty fast, but still not the fastest.
Oh.
The fastest engine on Sodor is Hugo, the Rail Zeppelin. Hugo is alluded to being the actual Rail Zeppelin of Germany, which had a top speed of 143 miles an hour. Hugo, of course, is an anomaly and not your conventional engine. The fastest engine of the series is Etienne, the French Electric. Etienne is alluded to being the real 9004, which in real life broke the world speed record for a locomotive in 1955 at 331 kilometers an hour. or roughly 205 miles an hour.
That's what I was looking for, 200 miles per hour.
Series to go over 200. Etienne never came to Sodor, though, thus making Hugo the fastest engine on the island.
Huh. Interesting. Also, I'm on a web browser version of YouTube, so little pop-up videos won't appear.
In one of the earliest stories of the book series, and later an episode of the TV series, the engine named Henry refused to exit a tunnel because he didn't want to get his paint wet in the rain. No matter what the passengers tried, they couldn't get him to move. Frustrated with Henry's stubbornness, the controller of the railway, i.e. the Fat Controller, walled Henry up and left him in the tunnel until further notice. And that's where the story ends. The story is aptly called The Sad Story of Henry. The misconception here is that Henry was left in the tunnel forever after this, and presumably died there. This is a funny misconception to me because the only people who fall for this are people who have very clearly never seen the show.
Yeah.
The Sad Story of Henry is a part one of a two-parter. The second part, called Edward Gordon and Henry, shows him being let out.
Yay.
The Fat Controller never intended to leave Henry there forever. The US dub even altered a line to assure the audience the walling up wasn't permanent.
"We shall take away your rails," he said, "and leave you here until you're ready to come out of the tunnel."
The Fat Controller...
I haven't heard that before. I only listened to the UK dub. It was during the hit era that I listened to the US dub. That's what I grew up with. I grew up with the UK dub in the Brit series. In the hit era, I grew up with the US dub. Brit, UK, hit, US. And of course didn't watch the CGI series, so...
always intended to let him out eventually. This misconception is unusually bewildering because every release of this episode, whether on TV, or on home media, or in book form, has always paired it with part 2. There is such a small chance that some...
Speaking of home media, my first Thomas show, first Thomas home media, as he says, was actually VHS tape. Yeah, we used to use those. I'm sure you'll learn. I'm sure you newer generations will learn about it in history class one day. Anyway, just thought I might just throw in a little bit of trivia there. And for the record, yes, the quality was terrible on VHS.
Saw only the part 1 and didn't see the part 2. If you ever saw him get bricked up, you very likely saw him get let out. So why do people further this misconception that Henry died in the tunnel? Clickbait. The answer is clickbait.
Yep.
It's all just a lie to further a narrative that isn't real to get...
Another thing is that some people said, like, Audrey didn't make a second story for him. It was only whenever people, like kids, wanted more Henry that he let him out of the tunnel. So that's another point that they bring up, that he was going to be left there for forever in the books. So there's another thing to add on. Oops. So, yeah. In short, Henry does not die. Oh, that also reminds me. There's this theory that... There's this theory that there are two Henrys. That the new Henry is literally a new Henry, a different Henry with the same memories and stuff like that. And that is not true. That theory is not true. Even Audrey, the Reverend himself, said that there was only one Henry.
That sounds very familiar.
Yeah.
On real steam engines, the front of their smokebox is a circular door that opens up so the crew can sweep out all the ashes that build up in there while the engine was in steam.
Aye.
In the Thomas universe, of course, the location of the doors is where their faces are. So naturally, most of us think, well, I guess the engines just don't have smokebox doors in this universe. I always thought Henry's sneeze was supposed to be an in-joke to this, that the engines all build up ash because there's no way to clear it out. But that's not the case, as confirmed by the story Out of Puff in the Railway series book, Henry and the Express.
The fireman cleared away more ashes, but when he tried to close Henry's smokebox door, it did not make the airtight fit that it should have done.
The text clearly states Henry's crew clears out his ashes and then attempt to shut his smokebox door. Of course, the illustrations don't show this, but it means the faces are the doors. And open up like this. I hate it, 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 I hate it. Imagine if they opened up like this in CGI. Like Gordon and James are arguing or something, and then wham! Gordon opens his face and looks directly at James next to him. That just might be the creepiest thought ever, and I don't think I'll be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah, me either. Are their noses like the I don't even know, my goodness.
Thomas the Tank Engine is an E2 class tank engine from the London, Brighton and South Coast Railway. He is specifically one of the variants with the extended side tanks, which means he would have been built in 1915 with that batch of the class, making him 107 years old in 2022. He's old. But get this.
What?
Gordon is an A1 from the Great Northern Railway.
Okay.
Technically the prototype A1. He came to Sodor soon after his construction in 1921, meaning he is actually younger than Thomas. While they're only about 6 years apart, it's still weird to think that Thomas is technically older than Gordon. Speaking of weird ages, Thomas and Toby are nearly the same age, which feels very wrong because of how each engine is characterized. Thomas is always depicted as a younger, hot-headed type, while Toby is the funny old grandpa. All the more weird when you realize Toby, aka J70 tram engine number 127 from the Great Eastern Railway, was built in 1914, only a year before Thomas. I don't really get how ages work with engines. I guess it all depends on how they feel.
Yeah, maybe. I'm out of coffee. We're halfway through the playlist. Wow.
Gordon's Hill is the steepest grade of railway track on the island of Sodor, based on the Lickey Incline in England. It got its nickname because Gordon was famously the first engine to get stuck on it. In the TV show, Gordon's Hill is depicted as a giant hill that the trains climb over and then slide down the other side of.
Whee!
Wellsworth is the station at the bottom on the west side, and Maron is the station at the bottom on the east side. There are many episodes where the engines pull trains up the hill coming from the west, lose control, and then crash at Maron. This is technically inaccurate, because the TV show misinterpreted the hill. In the books, Gordon's Hill is a steep gradient, yes, but only coming from the west. Wellsworth is at the bottom, then it's a climb up, and Maron rests at the top of the hill. In the story, Thomas and the Trucks, Thomas departs Vickerstown coming from the east, heading towards Edward Station, aka Wellsworth. He loses control on the hill going down it, and comes to a stop at Wellsworth. Since the TV series ignored that Vickerstown was the big station in the first two books, Thomas instead departs Knapford and goes the other direction, heading east, now making him climb the hill with weirdly no issue. Later episodes would go on to contradict this. It's fascinating how many little details the TV show actually got wrong that went on to impact the entire franchise.
Huh. And he wasn't kidding when it was bite-sized. My goodness. I should have put watch party in the title. I'll do it whenever it's uploading.
There is a common misbelief among people that the Fat Controller, aka Sir Topham Hatt, is an evil fascist dictator that treats his sentient engines like slaves.
What?
You must do what he says or he'll scrap them or lock them up in tunnels to starve to death. This obviously isn't true. It's fun to point at the funny-looking fat guy with the top hat and say he's evil, but he really isn't. Anyone who's ever watched the show can easily tell he's a fatherly authority figure that cares about his engines. Something to remember here is that the engines are not people. They don't necessarily have or desire free will in the same way humans do. The engines can only move around if there's people starting them up to do so. Unlike something like the Pixar cars, where the machines are totally alive and are independent from human intervention. The engines are actual man-operated machines, just like in the real world. They just happen to be alive. They have completely different desires and aspirations than humans do. Humans want free will to pursue whatever kind of life they desire ultimately, while an engine's desire is a lot more simple than that. They don't necessarily want free will. They want to be used. They want to be in service. They want to operate. They want to be useful. An apt comparison would be the Toy Story series. A toy's desire is to be played with by its owner. If their owner doesn't use them, then they feel they have no purpose. Is Andy an evil fascist dictator in this scenario? No, not at all. An even better comparison would be dogs. Dogs have owners and don't really desire free will. They just want to be taken care of. As long as they're loved and they get to go out on walks and are fed on the daily, they're totally happy. The engines are basically dogs, just with a higher level of intelligence. I view the Fat Controller with the same sort of morals as someone like a general manager of a heritage railway. Every decision made is with the notion in mind that the railway must be kept running, and that the engines must be taken care of. The series will know that the Fat Controller has never actually scrapped any of his engines.
Why did you think I would scrap the master of the railway, Thomas?
He punishes them when they're naughty, just like any authority figure would, but he never threatens them with death threats. He's actually gone out of his way and used his wealth to save engines that were in danger of being killed off. Most notably Oliver in the episode Escape. This man is a savior of engines, not a dictator. He is certainly not evil.
I love how the dog just tries to take ice cream. Could you imagine a train dog or dog train? Anyways, I had an idea. Imagine this Thomas reboot, a live action reboot. Instead of using model trains, they use real trains. Now, I know E2s were scrapped. I know, I get that. But imagine if we could make like some kind of locomotive similar to an E2 or an upgraded E2 or something like that. I think that would be really neat. But I mean, I can dream. Thomas fandom can dream, I suppose. Oh well. Ah. Wait, isn't this the...
Life is good.
Pet prescriptions delivered to your door. Chewy.
Here's an interesting fact that only pertains to the original Railway series books. First of all, what is a push-pull? Usually when a train reaches the end of the line, the engine has to run around the train to the other end to pull it back down the line, usually going backwards. In a push-pull consist, the engine never disconnects from the front. The driver instead goes to the rear coach, which will have special controls to operate the train's speed. The engine then pushes the train in reverse back down the line. It pulls it one way and pushes it the other. In the TV show, Thomas is always depicted as pulling Annie and Clarabelle going forwards. He is never seen running around and pulling them in reverse.
That's
the
true.
CGI episode, Thomas the Babysitter, confirmed that the end of his branch line has a loop that he goes around to switch directions, so he never has to uncouple from the coaches.
Thomas went to turn round on the loop, ready for his return to Knapford.
In the books, however, Thomas is indeed a push-pull. When he reaches the end of the line, his driver goes into Clarabelle and he reverses the train. This is why Annie, and more importantly, Clarabelle, was illustrated with windows on her face end, so the driver can see ahead when she's traveling forwards. These windows carried over to their TV props. As we can see in various illustrations, Thomas is pushing Annie and Clarabelle in reverse, such as here. or has a red tail lamp on his front, such as here, signifying he's going in reverse, and his front is the rear of the train. There are a few instances in the
Interesting.
books where Thomas can be seen pulling Annie and Clarabelle in reverse. This is obviously just because of inconsistency, but we can explain this away by saying the special equipment to join Thomas's controls to Clarabelle's were out of order, and thus the consist had to be pulled traditionally. Busy going backwards, you could say.
I suppose so. The last episode, well, the last...
Scruffy was an old dilapidated wagon that caused a lot of trouble for Oliver, and one of the few characters to actually have a shown death in the books.
Yeah.
In the original story, Toad Stands By, Scruffy accidentally met his maker when Oliver tried pulling him forward, and the trucks behind him held their brakes on. Getting stretched between them, Scruffy was ripped in half. In this story, Scruffy was broken up afterwards and scrapped,
Rip.
accompanied by this incredibly creepy picture of his remains where he still looks like he's alive. Ooh. The TV adaptation of this story changes the ending. Scruffy does indeed get ripped in half still, but he gets repaired at the end and is said to have learned his lesson.
Oh, I think there's a toy, where if you were to pull Scruffy, he would, quote-unquote, break apart, and you can put him back together or something like that. I think that was an actual toy. I'm not entirely sure about that. Feel free to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong.
Has learned his lesson and says nothing at all. And because they changed the ending, you'd think that means they did it because they thought killing him off was too morbid for the TV series, right? Wrong. In the next season, they ended up killing him anyway, but in a completely unrelated way. In the season 5 episode, Put Upon Percy, Scruffy reappears at the front of a train stuck in a coal mine. Percy dislodges it, but the train breaks away and runs loose into the mine shaft. Scruffy derails, hits a support beam, and the roof caves in, burying him alive.
Something worth noting is that he doesn't have his SC Ruffy on him. Now, that could be painted over or something, but it could just be a somewhat inconsistency where basically they would take off the faceplate from Scruffy and put it on another truck as just a obscure character that nobody should pay attention about, maybe? I don't know, maybe it is Scruffy.
No chance they saved him either, because the entire mine collapsed. Good lord. Scruffy does inexplicably make a blink and you'll miss it reappearance in the episode Double Teething Troubles later in the season, so maybe he did get rescued? Or perhaps this episode takes place before Put Upon?
Probably because some of the episodes actually take place before the other episodes, well, at least in the Railway series. And there's also this theory that some episodes can take place at the same time as others. Anyways. Oops.
I don't know what's a worse fate, being ripped in half or being buried alive. Poor guy.
Well, which was more...
R.I.P. Scruffy.
Well, which was more painful? Being buried alive, which is horrifying, or being ripped apart, which is painful. Well, that's the end of the playlist. Hopefully the Unlucky Tug makes more, because I really enjoyed this series. And hopefully you enjoy my personal commentary, and I will see you in the next video. Like, comment, and subscribe.